Hello, everybody, and welcome to Norm, the Cheers podcast that isn't quite. I am Mike. That's Tookie. That's Dave. This is the place where every week, most of the time, we celebrate the greatest sitcom ever made, Cheers, which was not inspired by any local sitcom made in Boston in the late 70s. It's great to have everybody back here. I'm sorry, I can't entertain it. It comes up every few years. Dave found this story about this locally produced sitcom called Park Street Under. And like every 3 to 5 years, someone writes about it like they're discovering it for the first time. Oh my gosh, it was Cheers before Cheers. And, God bless everybody involved in that show that they somehow managed to put out like 30 episodes of a local sitcom on a shoestring budget. And that's a fabulous achievement. But you did not come up with Cheers and get stolen. It's fine. It's there. Let's just acknowledge that it happened. Does anyone have any Park Street Under thoughts that they need to get off their chest before we talk about season 2, episode 6?
I have some thoughts.
Okay. All right.
I woke up and chose violence today. Okay.
That's the Last Dragon influence.
It is. I have some thoughts. About the main character and the actor who portrays him.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's not safe for our viewer base.
For after the show.
But if anybody in Boston wants to hear my Steve Sweeney story, ping me.
Uh-oh. Controversy erupting on Norm, the Cheers podcast.
It's beef.
Thank God this isn't live. We'll edit this out.
Yeah,
okay.
No, this is all on the floor. I had never heard that story. Like this was all news to me. Yeah. The Cheers predecessor sitcom. I had never heard about it, nor knew that like all of these people who worked on it are, many of whom are still living and working in Boston. That in itself just kind of blew my mind. And the concept that you could have a locally produced issues-oriented sitcom with local artists, like, man, like I want to live in that world where stuff like that happens more.
It's still happening. This has always gone on, and now it's on the internet. Like these shows are out there.
I'm living in Rhode Island. Like I want there to be like a weekly Providence-based sitcom starring like, 3 of my friends from Trinity, 3 of my friends from the GAM, and I get to rewrite the theme song every week to reflect something that happened in the Projo. Like, yeah, please, if I'm going to lose sleep, let me lose sleep over this.
Dave, it's tough for me to stress how attainable a goal that is for you. Like, this is right up there with I'm dreaming about owning a 2005 Saturn Ion.
Oh, man, the Ion
that can happen right away.
That Ion had a nice windscreen. It was big.
Mm-hmm. These are dreams that are just waiting for you to pluck off of a very short tree. They're right there for you, my friend.
I don't see a lot of reasonable quality local sitcoms being made anymore, Michael.
Okay, but here's the thing. That's because sitcoms don't exist in the same way that they used to, so people aren't making them. But even just a few years ago, they were doing Quiet Desperation, the local sitcom that all the local Boston comics were doing. Do you remember that, Tookie?
What the heck year was I started in the post Grandma's Basement era.
It predated you by a bit, but it was, okay. That was just something that was out there on Facebook, Quiet Desperation. It was a local Boston sitcom, and they made a bunch of episodes of it. It's really just about distribution. And if they want it, and there's still like people putting stuff out on public access TV, and people are streaming stuff, and all these shows are out there. And it's just the delivery system that's a little bit different. And now people who have a popular Clubhouse or TikTok show, are they like somebody like a TikTok comedy thing just got signed by WME, and none of them were us. Hey, welcome back to Norm, the Cheers podcast.
I have feelings about internet comedy that breaks into stand-up, because a lot of times those guys, I'll say it live right now, those guys don't hone the craft on stage, and when you take them off the screen and put them on stage in front of the audience, half the time they're garbage because they haven't developed the actual craft of stand up in front of people.
Well, that's what happened with Southern Mama at Montreal. What was that, 3 years ago?
Imagine the biggest comedy festival on earth being your open mic for you to go bomb in front of Canadians who are the nicest people.
Yeah, when Montreal turns on you, that's you, Dr. Banner. I'm sorry. That's you. Oh, man. Yeah. So if you don't know, this like internet comic who had this character, Southern Mama, got picked as a new face for like the biggest comedy festival in the world, Montreal, and went up and just died, absolutely died, and was also critical of everybody and was telling people about the future of comedy. And Chris Redd, Saturday Night Live's Chris Redd, basically had to tear him a new one because it was deserved. And yeah, it all happened in front of the audience at Montreal. And it's what happens when the thing about stand-up, just to get a little bit preachy, is it's the thing that is really hard to do that everybody absolutely sincerely believes they could do. It is everyone amusing. I just watched, because I have got a lot of time on my hands, I watched the Roddy Piper A&E biography earlier today. And of course, he did stand up. And Jeremy Piven, when he had got Scandal, I'm going to go and do stand up because it's just me and a microphone. And it's the most deceptively difficult thing in the world to actually pull off correctly. And that is why you watch every open mic on a Monday is littered with people who think they're hysterical with their friends and then just go up and embarrass themselves. And it becomes the story that is told for the next 15 years about that time that Timmy got up at the Connection and fucking ate it. Yeah. Yep. Alas and alack. All right. Should we move on to season 2, episode 6, Old Flames?
Let's do.
I mean, I'm happy to alienate more of the comedy world since I might never do comedy again. So
I'll fight you.
Got anything else? All right, we're at 2-6, right?
2-7.
Are we 2-7? I'm sorry, I wrote that down incorrectly. My bad. I apologize. Season 2, episode 7, Old Flames. So I do have the right episode, just the wrong number. All right, Dave, what was going on in the world when Old Flames premiered?
Well, Mike, Tookie, I want to take a slightly different tack this week and just kind of focus on one kind of monumental event that happened on this date in history, November 17th, 1983, which of course saw the premiere of, I would say, probably the high point of Babs's film career, Yentl. Yentl opened this day, and it has kind of a bit of an uneven reputation, but generally, I think, positively regarded. Certainly among the films that my family watched featuring rabbis, this was the better of the two, beating out The Jazz Singer by a fairly wide margin. I thought
Have I been the only one listening to a lot of Neil Diamond lately?
I have been listening to some Neil Diamond, but skipping the Jazz Singer soundtrack because I'm not here to joke about trauma, but it does linger. I thought it was interesting that this movie came out on the same day that this Cheers episode, which is maybe the most sort of retrograde, sexist, stereotypical episode that I think we've seen so far. It was interesting that this movie, which features a main character rebelling against the sort of patriarchal sexism of Orthodox Judaism, granted, it's a 40-year-old Barbra Streisand playing what's supposed to be like a 60-year-old Jewish boy, but I mean, still, I would rather surrender my disbelief in service of Yentl than I would in service of Fred Dreyer. So I want to take this time and just pump up Yentl for being forward thinking in a way that this coming episode of Cheers will not be.
Oh, okay. Question. 40-year-old, middle-aged-ish Barbara Streisand playing a 16-year-old Jewish boy versus 25-year-old Barbara Streisand playing Dolly in Hello, Dolly.
You know what? Like,
Barbara just did not want to play age appropriate.
You know what? She could, give Babs the money. She just actually was just her. She just turned 80, I think, yesterday or the day before. Just let her. You'd go, Barb. You do. And she did. To be fair, she changed the age of the character in this film. It was supposed to be 16. She changed it to 26. So closer. Mm-hmm. It's closer.
Frost that lens and cut that check.
Still, I'd rather see Streisand do either of those things than watch Fred Dryer call Diane Chambers a sexist nickname.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So pouring a little out for Yentl. Speaking of movies, Tookie, do you want to tell us a little bit about the cold open for this week's episode?
Well, we have our signature Norm entrance where he walks into the bar and requests a beer. And, much to my sad face, he and Vera have split for a time. And so he's telling the gang about how he met Arlene Horsky at his prior job because he let her slip some pizza, and now they're out to the movies together. Uh-huh. And he explains that while he's on a beer break, he told her that he's out for popcorn, and the punchline being as he's on his way back out to go see Gandhi, which I guess the joke here is that Gandhi is a very long movie.
Very long.
Yeah.
3 hours, 11 minutes.
Good God. Yeah. He tells the gang, I'll be back in an hour when I'm telling her I'm going to go get some jujubes. Mm-hmm. Cue the theme music.
Gandhi, very long, controversially beat out E.T. for Best Picture that year.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was
Does it come close to the...
Oh, go ahead.
No, does it come close to this year's Oscar debate where people were big mad about Chadwick Boseman being snubbed?
I mean, it's a different fuel for the debate. I mean, the debate for the Gandhi E.T. debate is the debate that's been going on for the Oscars pretty much since they were created, which is, all right, what are we rewarding? Are we rewarding the movie that everyone enjoyed the most this year? Or are we lauding something that just feels like a huge achievement? Because Gandhi feels like a huge achievement that no one ever wants to experience again. I don't know anyone who has seen Gandhi twice.
Nope. Gandhi's a one and done. Gandhi is the Johnson & Johnson of film experiences.
There is no second jab.
Oof. Is that the one?
Second jab.
That's the one with Ben Kingsley and brown face?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was some kind of etymology, like Ben Kingsley's his makeup somehow justified it at the time.
Yeah. Where he is.
Am I imagining that?
He's got like a sprinkle of some Asian heritage, but he's mostly white passing, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
But somewhere along the lines.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look back at that time and go, why did they think that was okay? Mm. And someone said, oh, I think there's something there.
Mickey Rooney had a whole career based on that. So,
we just watched a white guy play Othello not a few weeks ago. So.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But at least he stayed white. That's like even Cheers got that. All right, we're going to keep him white, right?
Oh, speaking of, have you guys seen the casting notice that I posted the other day?
Oh my goodness.
Woo boy. I don't know if I should read it back for our viewers / listeners or not.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh boy.
We can't react that way and then not share what we're reacting to.
Speaking of maybe keep Othello not, think about the way in which you would cast Othello. Yeah, let's see if I can pull it up.
I can say I've interacted with a lot of social media posts in my life. I've never felt less comfortable commenting on anything ever before.
Nope.
Every time
Yeah,
I
I
went to
wasn't even
type,
sure, like, should I do the laugh reaction? I definitely wasn't commenting. I was like, do I like heart it? What's the appropriate response here? Because it was worthy of a response. I just didn't know what to do.
It's okay if you sat that one out. I was okay with everybody sitting this one out. I was like, I
feel like that was also the message of sometimes quiet is okay.
Yeah.
I could feel my fingers saying, no, this isn't you. It's not for you.
In some cases, white silence is not violence. Like it's in some cases, everybody sit this one out. So the post goes, casting for all genders, parentheses, non-binary inclusive, and race. I work for a small theater company located in City Redacted, and we have shifted our focus recently to encourage diversity, particularly pertaining to minority groups. They had me in the first half, I'm not going to lie.
Such a strong start.
So good. We have taken note recently of a global trend called blind casting. This has been going on for years, but here we are, where roles that were transitional, I think they meant traditionally, given to one race or gender have their identities disregarded, and everyone is cast in any role regardless of race or gender. Our organization sees this as the future of craft, and as a result, we have started pre-production on a small project in this vein.
We're positive this isn't satire, right? Are we positive this is real?
We wish to do a stage show adaptation of the film 12 Years a Slave using blind casting technique. If there's any interest, don't hesitate to message. Love you all.
Have we confirmed it's not The Onion?
Not The Onion.
Like, it's so clearly insane that it feels like something somebody wrote to catch somebody. It's real.
I feel like I saw something like this on Stage Source in 2005.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if anyone's interested, we'll share the contact info
Just hit us up
on the Facebook page so you can get your headshots out to them.
Wow. Who are you going to play? Master, slave? Blind casting can only tell.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was told repeatedly that I should go for Brad Pitt's role.
Well, Natch.
Oh, Brad.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's funny because even at the time that movie came out, like, I remember people saying, hey, can we show some happy Black people at some point? Like, I remember even then they were like, this feels like a bit much. And then to say, let's do it again, colorblind, really feels like, I don't know. All right, I'm gonna sit the rest of this one out.
Well, speaking of movies, is it logistically possible? Would it have been logistically possible at that point in time for Norm to get from the Boston Common Theater to Cheers and back in a reasonable amount enough amount of time for it to seem like he was getting?
That theater did not exist at the time. Yeah, the Boston Common Theater was built in, I want to say, 2001.
Oh.
Yeah, because when I moved into Boston, I moved into Kenmore Square in December of 98, and that theater did not exist, nor did the Fenway. We had the worst movie theater city basically in the country. I mean, to the point where George Lucas wasn't going to let the prequels show in Boston proper because there wasn't a good enough movie theater to show it. And he wasn't
Jar Jar Binks?
Yeah. Right. We didn't have something worthy of Jar Jar.
Okay.
Yeah.
You almost dodged that bullet.
Yeah. The biggest theater that we had at that time was the Cherie, which is in the building that King's is in now. Yeah, right off of Boylston. So that was the biggest theater. But back in 83, there used to just be a lot of smaller theaters. And I know somebody said there was one right on Beacon Hill. I want to say it might have been the Orson Welles Theater, but I could be wrong. So yeah, at that time, there were just a lot more individual theaters and fewer multiplexes. Small theater near the Parker House. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. So yeah, there were a lot of those. I think it was might have been before the Copley movie theaters opened. That would not have been close enough. Yeah. The Copley Mall used to have the tiniest.
They were so small
multiplex. Yeah, just if you go to a friend's house that really loves movies, their TV is much nicer than the theaters that they used to have in the Copley. Oh yeah. Ooh. Yeah. But the nice thing about the Copley was it was kind of a fun date spot because it was actually an indoor place in the winter where you could go and grab dinner and walk around a little bit and then go to the movies without your face hurting. So that was kind of the nice thing. Huh. But yeah. So the long answer to your question is probably.
Cool.
There was probably a theater close enough to Cheers that now I don't know how quickly Norm was zipping around Boston, but theoretically a 3-hour and 11-minute movie, if he left after about a half hour, he could have gone and gotten a beer, gone back, and then in an hour gone out for Juju Beans again. So yeah, theoretically he could have at least gotten to the theater and back. So there you go. Okay. An interesting episode this week.
That's generous.
Yeah. Well, I'm very curious about your thoughts on it because on the one hand, like wildly inappropriate, misogynistic, so many things that made me uncomfortable. The relationship with Sam and Diane never seems unhealthier. It's going to get worse. But up to this point might be the unhealthiest relationship episode. Fred Dryer, wildly inappropriate as Dave. Yet I also watched it and found myself thinking, Fred Dryer, more talented than I gave him credit for, because he was delivering these lines, and yet I still thought his delivery was really good. Mm-hmm. And he was a full knowing pig, and we were laughing at him as we should have been. So I remember watching this episode and going, I see now why Fred Dryer was in the final 3 for Sam. I got it. And I also get why he didn't get it, because when he's the pig, you laugh at him and dislike him a little too much. He couldn't pull off what Ted Danson did. Yeah, that bug deserved it. So yeah, and it was really weird just watching how they wrote for Diane in this episode. I thought was bizarre. Like they made her oddly unlikable in a way. I was like, with all of this going on, and you're somehow making her like very weirdly.
She was almost the villain.
Shrewish. Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. So it's very weird. So very quickly, basically the whole A story this week is Dave is coming, Fred Dryer is coming back playing Dave, local sportscaster, former teammate of Sam's. He is getting a divorce. He wants to bring Sam out to go and chase women. He is getting ready to go before he remembers that he is dating Diane. Dave says, don't worry, within 24 hours, you guys will be broken up. Sam and Diane start fighting because Sam still has his little black book, which is so 80s. It's the early frontrunner for the 80s moment of the week. Diane wants him to get rid of it. He does not want to get rid of it. They start fighting. She leaves. Dave brings 2 women by. Sam ends up leaving with one of the women, going to a hotel that doesn't exist. I don't know why you couldn't just pick out a real hotel. Yeah, it was kind of strange. Then the next day, he's elated to share with her that he got in bed with this woman and did not sleep with her. She is mad. Somehow, Dave pops in, and Sam spins this in a way that wins Diane back before the end of the episode after she spits on him, bites his tongue, and he grabs his golf club to defend himself and potentially attack Diane. Scene. Interesting week at Cheers.
Choices
Yeah,
were made.
your thoughts?
This episode was ass. Who the heck? David Angel? Whatever. This episode was, if you're watching Mr. Angel, this episode was open ass. Like, why would you write this? Why would you write this?
I was so glad we took a week off because I watched it last 2 weekends ago. Like Saturday night, I was like, all right, I'm getting ready for bed. I'll watch my Cheers, kind of like, just to kind of like chill out, the end of the stressful pandemic week, a little Cheers before bed, get the thoughts turning for the podcast. And then it was that episode. And then I was mad. And then I was dreading watching it again. And then we took the week off and I was happy to not have to encounter it until this morning. Yeah, it's just a negative episode.
It was a really weird episode because, I mean, the vibes were terrible. The vibes were terrible, yet there were some jokes inside of it that I absolutely loved. Mm-hmm. Some of the jokes written for this week's episode made me laugh out loud both times I watched it. I thought were great. But yeah, the overall tone, it's hard for me to express how anxious I am for Sam and Diane to break up. Like, you two should not be in this relationship. I don't know why we ever wanted you to be in this relationship. You guys absolutely should never be together again.
It's like, it's that question of like, I don't believe that people like change, but can people grow? And like this episode seemed to say, I guess not. Like, because just because of the way that we're supposed to feel about Sam not sleeping with a woman that he's in bed with, that didn't feel victorious. That didn't feel like he had deepened or made any discoveries particularly. He maybe found out he had a scruple finally. I don't know.
Especially when he ends it by saying, "Watch me kiss my woman."
Ah,
that was his growth.
Maybe you'll learn something.
Oh, David Angel, what were you doing?
The note I wrote was, this is a Neil LaBute sitcom. Like, I disliked every person and simultaneously feared for them.
In the company of Norm.
This episode was stressful. I didn't 0 stars.
Wow.
0 stars. Didn't care for it. I mean, but props to who's the character man?
Dave,
yeah. Props to him because as his actor, gosh, why am I blanking on all the? I think I just hated this episode so much. I blocked out everybody.
Fred Dryer, who played Dave. Yeah,
Fred Dryer. Kudos to Fred Dryer. Props to him, because as he played Dave, I believed him. Believed him. And that is a skill for me to really invest that much loathing into a sitcom character who's barely making any other appearances on the show at this point. So,
I was so convinced by his characterization that I was like, this has to be real on some level. And I spent 20 minutes Googling things like Fred Dryer problematic, Fred Dryer difficult. And there's some hits out there.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you've ever, I think I've referenced this on the show before. Have you ever read Ball 4? Jim Bouton book. It's an amazing book. It was written in 1969 by this relief pitcher for the Seattle Pilots. And it chronicled behind the scenes his year playing baseball for them. He had been this great pitcher for the Yankees. He got hurt, came back as a knuckleballer. And it was scandalous at the time because it talked about how these professional athletes behaved when nobody was looking. And that was the book I kept thinking about during this episode. I was like, yeah, these guys were straight out of Ball 4, and this is how they behaved. And Fred Dryer was a professional football player, and I absolutely believe that is how they behaved when they were playing football. So, yeah, it's really bad now, but I also think it was really pretty accurate. I don't think anything there was like, oh, that couldn't have happened. Yeah, I think that all happened.
I do, but I don't believe the Wilt Chamberlain numbers. But go ahead, Dave.
I believe the spirit behind the Wilt Chamberlain numbers.
Yeah.
Like when you actually sit down and do the math, it's probably not accurate. But just in terms of the emotional difference between 8,000 and 20,000, it's accurate.
The thing about the Boughton book, and I love that book too, like the thing that pulls you into the writer is his sort of understanding and acknowledgement of how superficial and shallow so much of that behavior is, and how destructive some of it is. Like Boughton writes with a real sort of like knowing kind of understanding of what this life is, even as he's partaking in elements of it. And that's what was really missing in this episode, is like there's no, like, Dave and Sam are both so incapable of being reflective. They are just they're incredibly shallow, and it was like it's just unpleasant to watch them.
Now, by 83 standards, which is a tough thing to say, do you think that the people watching this looked at this and said, Sam has grown and Dave has not? Like, do you think people who were watching this were going, all right, but you know what? Sam's trying. Like, do you think they were grading him on that curve? And do you think you showed Dave here to make Sam look a little nicer?
I think maybe only because it seems like Sam is being rewarded for doing the bare minimum, and that's what we.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. And it just feels like that was sort of the standard at one point or another, or at least what we were advertised to be the standard in a certain pocket of time, where it was like, well, the sitcoms and the movies are, you can just show up to a woman's doorstep with a boombox, or like, a sign that says, to me, you are perfect. And it's totally not creepy because she's got a whole husband in the back, but he doesn't pay attention. So it's like, like, I think it was only up until recently where.
Well, that happened in a year with a 2 in front of it.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like until the past decade or so, it was sort of like, it was advertised to us that this sort of bare minimum, but also creep minimum was acceptable, and this is how you romance, and this is how you pick up artists, and this is how you wine and dine.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some fun things in this week's episode, if we can find them, and then we can agonize over it a little bit more. One thing, aside from Fred Dryer being legit funny, which I think he was and proved in this week's episode, I think this was the first appearance of Al.
Yeah.
In the background, even though he is credited as having his first appearance in a later episode with the fortune-telling machine, I believe it's only because that was his first speaking line. Al is hanging out at the bar. Old man Al. Al, who's played by Al Rosen. And yeah, good for him. And he's one of my favorite little random pop-up characters in the Cheers universe. So tip of the cap, Al. I think that's the first sighting.
It was nice to see him there. I hadn't realized I was missing him.
Yeah. I think Coach is the MVP of this week's episode, as he often is.
By a mile.
I think I just had a blackout. Kind of a nice break in the day, isn't it, Sam?
That's my joke of the week.
The little 2-minute or maybe 30-second play between Coach and Carla about his car keys, I would watch over and over and over again on a loop. Just fabulous.
Magnificent.
The whole thing. Just, you have to watch it. I'm not going to be able to do it justice, but how he handles not losing his car keys anymore, just fantastic acting and writing. It was so tight. It was like a vaudeville routine and perfectly performed.
It was cool to see Carla playing the straight person too in that.
Yeah.
And she does it. She nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's only the straight person for Coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's only ever the straight person for Coach, and she didn't have much to do this week.
No, they didn't
But
really
she did
give
have
her.
one great line.
Her line is my joke of the week.
Is it? Okay, I
Yeah.
don't want to take that from you then. We'll save that for later. But yeah, she didn't have much to do, but the one thing that she did, the playing the straight man and then her joke was absolutely fabulous.
She had one bullet in the chamber and she did not waste it.
And Diane, Shelley Long, for having very little to do, also had a couple of great lines. I loved Under the Pillow You Dream On. I thought that was great. That's
Big
what I
guy.
mean. I thought this was such an uncomfortable episode, but I had a ton of lines that I liked in this week's episode. I feel like David Angel wrote great jokes and couldn't quite nail the tone for this whole episode. And obviously he's one of the co-creators of one of the great sitcoms of all time. So I don't want to sit here and go like, he just doesn't know how to write an episode of sitcom. I just think he wrote some fabulous lines in this week and really, really lost the tone of what he wanted to do. And I feel like that's season 2 in a nutshell. There are some great episodes, some really funny lines, and I feel like the tone of this season doesn't quite work. When Sam and Diane are together, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't quite go with the rest of the series. It's weird.
It's almost like too much responsibility gets kind of shifted off of their shoulders for storytelling, and it ends up putting more. You end up having to sort of have Fred Dryer do more work for you than you want, and now Fred Dryer has to be more Sam than Sam is, and all of a sudden, and now like everything that's kind of lovable about the show is kind of like off a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. Question: was this the 12-year precursor to We Were on a Break from Friends? Where he's like, I thought we were broken up and I still didn't do it.
I just got a migraine.
You know, if you want to talk about Park Street Under inspiring Cheers, did this moment inspire We Were on a Break?
Maybe, but all of Living Single inspired Friends. Just going to put that out there.
Which did Living Single predated Friends, did it not?
Yes. And Friends basically ripped it off, but with white people.
I have a friend who had inside Hollywood knowledge who said supposedly the creators of Friends were told, we want Seinfeld but pretty.
Oy.
Good, that was the note. We want attractive Seinfeld. Go write that. And they did. They really did.
This is
the lines that they gave to Sam this week. Yeah, this young filly, kiss my woman, Dee Dee. I can't do this. I got a chick. It's like it was so over the top. I mean, it must have been on purpose, right?
Feminism died and went to hell this episode. I swear. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
It just like you could feel like Ted Danson playing against like all the good, all the sort of like good aspects he's discovered about that character, and he has to kind of blunt them in this episode, and it's just like it doesn't work.
Yeah, like it feels like at some point they edited out Sam's line. All right, do you really want to vote?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
All right.
Because like he doesn't even seem to particularly like Dave that much.
No.
I don't understand like why being why supporting Dave is so important to him. He doesn't seem to like him. There's no like sort of like drive behind it.
I don't think he doesn't necessarily feel a huge drive to support Dave. Dave was his wingman. I mean, they were just going out. They were great at getting women together. That was their bond. And I don't think there's anything really in this episode that makes me go like, oh, he's really just kind of trying to look out for his friend. I don't think that's there between them. They're not really doing that for each other. And the other appearance that Dave had, he just, tossed Sam aside as soon as McEnroe was available. So, yeah, like they're not good friends. They are wingmen.
And if that's the case, then then I have to believe that Sam is driven purely by his desire to recapture his life pre-Diane, which was only a few months ago, apparently.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that ipso facto he's an asshole. And now I don't want to watch the show. Bad episode, David Angel.
All right. A lot of issues. Anything before we get to the categories?
More women writers.
More Heidi. I know she needs a break, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. 80s moment of the week. For me, it was The Little Black Book. I remember being young and thinking that A Little Black Book was going to be a huge part of my adult life. And it turned out it was not.
I was glad to hear Wanda Mendelsohn named. I wasn't expecting to hear, somebody I might have gone to Hebrew school with named as the first person pulled from the book.
Good for Wanda.
Yeah, she's apparently got some talents.
Plumbing
in particular.
All right, yeah, your 80s moments of the week.
Yeah, I am up there with you in terms of not only is it that it's a little black book, but Sam says specifically for emergency phone numbers. And that was a big deal. But I think a close-ish one where the black book might be a 2 for me is Dave's blazer choices, especially in the second scene, the day after, where he had that checkered situation. And I'm like, wow, that is a time capsule if it were a blazer, a jacket. Yeah. So that felt very deliberately, not even that it was 80s on it was just the 80s, but it just felt just very specifically of its time as a dapper look for a man.
Yes.
He wears the hell out of it too. He no love lost between me and Fred Dryer, but he that jacket is a specific look that maybe Fred Dryer and only Fred Dryer can pull off in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that is a sport coat worn by a sporty gentleman.
Yes.
Dave, your 80s moment.
I'm going to go with the concept referenced in this show of the evening sportscast. Used to be appointment viewing. Bob Lobel was my guy. But we all had, whether it be Channel 4, Channel 5, or Channel 7, our desired sportscaster who we could spend 10 to 15 minutes with every night and catch up on, the highlights of the day. Part of me misses a sportscast, because I don't need it anymore. It's an appendix of a thing. But that was fun, remembering what it was like to stay up till 11:20 and make sure I knew how the Celtics did or how the Red Sox did. I miss a little bit that moment of community.
Wanting to find out how the Celtics did also feels like something from the past. All right. Joke of the week.
Ouch.
Yeah. Dave, we've been making you suppress the joke of the week for a little while. Dave, what's your joke of the week?
Oh my gosh, it's just a perfect Carla drive-by. As they go into, as Sam and Diane argue about the little black book, and Diane asks about Wanda Mendelsohn. Sam says she asks what sort of emergency number is Wanda Mendelsohn in, and Sam says she's an all-night plumber, which gets a really kind of wonderful dirty laugh from the crowd, and then Carla cruises by at the perfect speed to deliver this rejoinder. She's the only plumber in Boston. You have to go to her house. She starts it in the upper right corner of the screen, and by the time she gets to the bottom left corner, I was weeping. It's a perfect Carla line, and it cracked me up every single time.
Fabulous. Tookie, your joke of the week?
Yeah, it's that coach line about blackouts. I don't know. I just
Great line.
it's not even the line itself. It's just like the it's it's the energy with which he says it, like Sam is clearly, trying to BS his way out of the situation. Oh, coach, I think I must have blacked out at the bar. And coach, just like the delight in like, yeah, I have these too. Aren't they great? Just, it's a great break in the middle of the day. Like his excitement and the energy behind that. Just
the idea that you genuinely believe that's me time.
Yeah.
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 It keeps me going.
Like that's his self-care, like, and I just, bless Nick Colasanto.
Yeah. So my joke is also going to be, Coach. I was trying to figure out if I could pick a joke out of the car key scene, and I don't think I don't think there's one joke in there that, because it's the whole scene.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's it. So my joke of the week was, Coach, the phone's ringing. It's just in my head. That was a great callback to a joke from earlier on. That was so good. Yeah. Where he answers the phone when he's confused and there's a lot going on. And he said, oh, the ringing is just in my head. And then later on, the phone is ringing. Cliff tells him, Coach, the phone's ringing. No, it's just in my head, Cliffy.
That was an Edward Albee. Sometimes you have to go a long distance out of your way to come back a short distance correctly moment. Like that was such a weird setup, but the payoff absolutely was worth it.
Yep. All right, Tookie, how white was this week's episode?
Oh, this was a very Caucasian episode. This I counted one. Oh yeah, I counted one woman at the end of the bar with what looked to be a fro situation. But other than that, no, this was this was Himalayan. It was powdered, lightly dusted.
It was Yentl.
It was.
It was a yeshiva.
Yeah.
All right. Really... Well, we had to get to it. The Sam creepy quotient.
Ooh. Okay. We grade it. Okay. I'm schwitzing. Sorry. Listen, we grade Sam on a curve. For me, it'll never really truly reach 0 because Sam is never not going to creep. That's my guideline there. Okay. But where Dave was at like a 33, Sam was about 28.
Okay.
Out of 10, it was real high creepage, but not nearly as high creepage as Dave. But but like Sam did himself no favors at all this episode. And oh, look, I didn't all the way cheat on you is not that. This helps no one.
Yeah. I can barely quite figure out how to rank him this week. It's tough because having Dave changes his grading a little bit, but it was a tough Sam week.
I felt Sam's creepiness like in a more personal way this week. I realized I was trying to figure out why I was so mad, and then I realized that scene with the stewardess. Where he ultimately kind of decides to go back to her hotel room. The staging and the lighting and the timing of it reminded me a lot, I realized, of the Sam Diane scene from Endless Slumper in season 1, where you think Sam is going to have a drink and then he doesn't. And like the turn in this scene where where you think he's not going to go home with the stewardess and then he does, reminded me of that turn, but played negatively, and it made me feel creeped on as an audience member who invested emotionally in this character, who just who used his vocabulary, a vulnerability from season 1 to turn on me and show his gross side. So I give him 130.
Okay.
Yeah,
fair,
because it hurt me.
Yeah I feel that.
I think I'm scoring him pi because I'm just not sure where it ends. So that's mine. 3.413, and it's just going to go on for a while I sit and think about it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a philosophical question. When you start dating somebody back in the day, would you have expected them to throw away their address book? That's the first part. B, when you get together with somebody now, do you expect them to remove all the numbers from the phone? Answer as you will.
This is such a pure thought experiment for me.
Right.
And it's really it's fascinating. I don't think I expect anybody to do anything for me. That might just be my self-esteem. But I don't expect anybody to do anything to make me feel better about myself at any point. And of course, you don't delete the numbers from your phone. That's your phone. Like, it's a repository. Like, I'm not responsible for the numbers that are in. They're just in there. I can't. Right. That's just information. We have to have the information in order to make informed choices for the rest of our lives. We can't pretend things don't exist.
So that's a very, very good point. But that's kind of calling into question a big part of this episode, where it's like, all right, when you start dating somebody new, do you have to transfer? Because that was his address book, as we learn in later episodes, where he does have the number of his cleaning lady. So he does keep other numbers in that address book. If he starts seeing somebody, is it then his functional responsibility to get a new address book, copy down only platonic numbers into that address book, and throw the book away?
Yeah, I
mean, it was such a big plot point of this episode. And as creepy as I found Sam this whole week, there was a part of me going, well, what do you want him to do with the phone book? Like, that's where he's got all of his numbers. Do you expect him to just copy the platonic numbers into a new one and throw that one away? Like, what is the etiquette there?
I feel like Sam's flaw was to was to make this, was to totemize this book. You know, it should have been utilitarian. It should have been like, this is my phone book. Forget, guys, stop. Don't make a big deal about it. But he allows Norman Cliff to treat this thing like the golden calf or something, and it becomes like it becomes more loaded than it needs to be.
We didn't talk about Cliff's big virgin energy when apparently when touching just the cover of the book.
In my running for joke of the week, and it didn't hit there because I feel like it got used by so many other sitcoms with I Can See. And I guess it didn't strike me that way because Cliff at this point feels like he's in on the joke more than he would be in later seasons.
Yeah.
Like, that moment was them making a funny joke to make other people laugh. It wasn't that Cliff energy of, oh my God, I can't believe I actually touched it. I didn't think that was a sincere moment. I just thought that was Cliff and Norm pulling a good bit, as you could tell, because the women that were by the payphone were legitimately laughing, as in they're really doing this well moment. So yeah, I guess it struck me that way. Did it strike you differently?
No. I mean, it sort of did. I think because I came in later and didn't have the context of Spicy Cliff to work with. When Cliff had a little bit more bite to him back in the day. Yeah.
I have to say, I'm really enjoying Spicy Cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of almost enjoy where he's got a little more on the ball.
Yeah,
in the earlier seasons.
I like Cliff being in on the joke more than, when he just goes full incel at some points later on.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, because he does go full on incel later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to the point where in a later episode, he actually goes hysterically blind at the thought of genuinely having intercourse.
Yeah.
It's a big journey from him being in on the joke here to being physically incapacitated by the thought of being with a woman.
It's a really interesting character arc. You don't often see somebody regress that way over the course of years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you could make the argument that maybe it made him funnier. And you could disagree. It's a worse character. I'm open to that. But usually with so many sitcoms, the problem is they grow and evolve to the point that they're not quite as funny and broad anymore, which was one of the, the criticisms of like the Fonz as Happy Days wore on, where suddenly he wasn't this cool, weird, mythical figure. Then he became a teacher, and he had like relationships, and you knew too much about him, and he wasn't the Fonz anymore. Cliff went reverse Fonz.
They flanderized him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is Cliff actually like going under the shark? Like, what do we call that?
Yeah,
movement?
no. Yeah, no. I mean, I like this spicy Cliff who's in on the joke more. When I think about what Cliff became versus what he initially was, the writers absolutely cucked him in the later seasons, and what is this?
Yeah.
No wonder Ratzenberger is like this now.
Yeah.
He seems he seems like genuinely like useful in like this season. Like he had that little scenelet with Diane early in the episode, and it was really kind of helpful dramaturgically to kind of like give like Diane a way to like sort of express herself, not with Sam. And he's like a good foil for Diane, and he's a good foil for Coach periodically. Like he shows up in a lot of interesting little scenes in a way that he doesn't later on, I don't think.
Yeah. He's not useful in the same way.
No.
Yeah. Now, Tookie, so as the young person though, like what is the new phone etiquette? If people are getting together, are phones expected to be purged? Like what is that something that gets discussed at all?
I am so thankful to have gotten out of the dating game when I did, because it just seems like again, I think we're still only barely an inch past allowing, and of course I'm speaking in terms of like cis-het relationships, straight men. I think we're only just barely an inch past rewarding men for the bare minimum, because what I have come to understand as like the most romantic gesture in a young relationship of people under 40 is, I got rid of all my hoes for you. I don't have any side chicks. I deleted all these numbers. Or it's a real relationship when he saves your number and doesn't new phone who dis you. So it's like there isn't an expectation to delete your phone, and you're not like I probably have numbers in there from 2014, 2013, 2012, who knows. But there are people who I'm never ever going to contact, and I probably block I think that's the thing, like once you're in a serious relationship, you block the number anyway. But in terms of like what we're expecting of men, it's like, he got rid of his side chicks. There's no side chicks involved. We got rid of all his hoes for you. That means he's serious. And it's like, ugh.
Is there like a ritualistic purging of the Bumble and Tinder and such?
I think, from what I've seen from a lot of my friends, I think when they start to enter into a serious relationship, deleting the apps is a huge step, because I think too, like a lot of courtship in the modern age has migrated away from direct telephone numbers, and there are other avenues through which you can connect and contact people. So there's Messenger, there's DMs, Instagram, whatever. Like you can contact people, and of course there's texting features in the dating apps. So deleting your apps when you're seeing somebody, like that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And what people don't talk about too is that some of those apps are kind of designed to keep you single so that you stay on the app longer. Yeah. Algorithm.
Yeah. So deleting Tinder is the new throwing out the black book.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Only if you could immediately download the black book right where it was as soon as you broke up again.
Yeah. I mean, if it's in your Apple ID, it's saved in the cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's never really deleted.
Yeah, but
you don't have to tape the pages back in when you delete Z through X.
Oh boy. Yeah, but when you delete the apps, that is a major step. Like I remember too, like I was that friend for a time who would like let my partnered friends swipe for me. And that became fun because at that point I was matching with like ceiling fans and Garfield the cat. Like I didn't give a shit. But it was, it's like, oh, now I have to like give up the game because I'm seeing this guy and I'm like, I I like him. I think we're serious. So,
Right.
deleting that, and I got out the game before the emergence. Like Hinge existed, but it didn't get
Mhm.
big until after I
Mhm.
started dating my man. Um, but Tinder existed, and then Bumble was sort of starting, but then I was already like, we were already getting serious by the time Bumble started to blow up.
Right.
So it was only deleting the Tinder, and it was more like, ugh, I'm deleting I'm not serious about anybody who's on this app,
Yeah.
but I'm deleting the
Yeah.
fun of at least swiping.
Now, I'm sorry, we make you answer all the young people questions. Sorry. But I'm very curious, and young people who are watching this, because I think we've got a huge young person following for this Cheers podcast.
No,
Actually,
Facebook.
there's some people who, dig the show.
Nice young people. Yeah. So young people, I would love, post on the page, what is the process? Because that was my other big question is, okay, when you do delete the apps, like, do you tell each other? Do you do it at the same time? Is there something because I remember when my wife and I got together, it was a big thing of, all right, I'm changing our relationship status on Facebook, and then the other person has to approve that, and that was the big thing. But now I feel like you almost have to have that conversation of all right, are we deleting at the same time? Are they going away? And if you delete and then you find out the other person is not deleted, that's an uncomfortable moment. So
That's a big betrayal.
Yeah. So I'm very curious about the etiquette there. And do you have that conversation, or do you just do it when you're ready? You're like, they're going to do it when they're ready. Or do you say, it's time, those need to go?
It seems like that ceremony, that co-deletion of apps has the same sort of. It seems like that's perhaps that harnesses some of the same potentially destructive energy as gender reveal parties.
Yeah.
There's one more excuse to set a block on fire.
No, because it's just happening on the phone. See, I disagree. I'm of the mind that we need to come up with a name for that date. That should be a thing where you go, all right, it's time for the deletion date, where you go out and you have a nice dinner and you both got your phones and you're in the booth and you together are committing to this relationship by deleting your phones. There should be a date for that where we agree, and a title. That's your deletion date.
That should be
if all right, have you had your deletion date yet? You've been with him 3 months. It's time for the deletion date, or you got to call it off.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also depends on the maturity of the couple too, because it's not even something. Well, first of all, we're an anomaly in this day and age because me and the man actually met in person.
Right.
Who does that?
Right.
Who does that?
Weirdos.
Right. Ugh. But it really is a question of the couple's maturity as individuals as well, because it's not even something that we discussed. It was just sort of like, yeah, we're seeing each other, this is it. It doesn't have to be discussed that either of us deleted the dating apps.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I think it's you also you got in pre-Bumble before. You got in just before, from the sound of it, where it was just kind of assumed this is how we're all meeting each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if that's not a thing, that needs to become a thing, and I need to somehow copyright it and create the website for deletiondate.com.
Get on
it. And I'll start writing that script, because that's clearly an Anna Faris comedy waiting to happen.
Oh man, it's gonna be Anna Faris and Pete Davidson, and then I'm not gonna want to watch it.
Oh no.
Pete. All right. Any thoughts before we wrap up episode 7?
Don't let David Angel write anymore. Not this shit.
I feel like this is he's written good stuff. He's a good writer who had a down week. This is a slump. This is a mid-April slump. The weather's cold. The bat's going to warm up. He's going to get there.
This isn't his first episode, is it?
No.
But
my trust with him is low.
This was a rough one. This was not an enjoyable ride.
No, we're gonna get back. We're gonna get
But-
back. What's next week's episode?
Next week takes us. This is a coach-centric episode, Manager Coach,
Oh yeah. All right, good one.
written by Earl Pomerantz, a first-time entry into our writers.
Yeah, I remember this episode. This is an unusually coach-heavy episode
Mm.
with, I think, a B story.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. So it's not all A story because I don't think they could ask that of Nick Colasanto. So they put in a strong B story in here.
Mm.
So that's
but-
coming up.
Props to Fred, what's his name?
Fred Dreyer.
Fred Dreyer, for acting so well that I fully believe that he was this Dave guy.
That's how Hunter managed to stay on the air for 26 years.
I'm not convinced he's not. And I know he'll probably tackle me, with a full running head of steam. And at 76, he'll probably still break me. But I think there's too much that came too easily to Fred Dreyer.
Mm.
And Stephanie Powers did seem to that relationship seemed to have been fractured by their time together on Hunter. And there's some ugliness under the surface of Fred Dreyer. I'm here to say it.
Hashtag cancel
you're-
Fred Dreyer.
Dave, you're an actor. Come on. That's not fair to my man, Fred.
I refuse to believe he's that good.
Hashtag Fred Dreyer is over party.
we're coming for you, Fred Dreyer.
15 years after his last part, we're canceling Fred Dreyer. Take that. Experience our power, Fred Dreyer.
Wrath feels so good.
All right. On the suffering of Fred Dreyer, I think that's a perfect time to wrap it up.
That's Mel Gibson's
David
next
Ducky.
film.
I am Mike. We're going to see you back here next week, Tuesday, 8:30. Stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.